So hey guys, this is Eric with Future of Forestry, and I'm here with an old friend, Pete Kipley. And Pete Kipley, let's see, we lived in California together for, what was it, Pete? How many years were we together?
Man, I would say 2-3 years.
2-3 years, and had the best times. Pete's in Nashville right now. I'm in Colorado, and I'm wishing we were both in California right now for this interview.
Oh, me too.
But this is good enough just to reconnect with you. And Pete, just to let people know kind of who you are. Pete's a producer. You know, I don't know what to mention because you've done so many things. When I first met you, you were working on Phil Wickham. Since then, you've done David Crowder, Plus One, Matthew West, Phil Daniel, his brother, many other things, Pete. I don't know if there's anything that you want to mention that you want to be known by, but I feel like I've mentioned a good number.
Well, I want to be known by producing Future of Forestry, but I think they've already got a pretty good
and
producer.
You kind of have, man.
So, whatever. Oh man.
Now let's mention that though.
I got to be a fan and play bass on one track.
You played bass on one of the songs on the Travel series, but you were very involved in my life then, and I'm really grateful
likewise
for that. So.
Yeah, I grew mostly as a surfer, but also deeply as a producer with that relationship with you. You've inspired me,
dude.
Big fan,
dude. That was pretty awesome to meet you. I felt like we just immediately hit a friendship. There's not a lot of producers down there in San Diego at the time. And it was my manager at the time that gave me your phone number and was like, call this guy up. And we talked. And what were you telling me yesterday? And we were talking on the phone. You said the first time that we met,
I'll never forget it. Yeah, the first time we met was the day I moved to California, and I drove a 30-foot U-Haul straight from Nashville to Carlsbad, California, and I pulled that U-Haul up into the driveway. I didn't even get out to go inside the house. Jumped in your car. You took me straight to the surf shop, bought my longboard and a wetsuit, and then came 3 hours of total humiliation, but joy as well.
But
so
what a
trying to figure that out.
Yeah,
perfect day.
Perfect way to enter into the California lifestyle, man.
Oh, it was a double blessing, getting that water and get to start a long friendship with you.
Yeah, man. Totally, dude. Well, so part of I don't know if I shared this with you, but part of the reason why I started this blog that you're on is I felt like I was hiding. I felt like I was kind of doing music and kind of doing it mysteriously. And I'm like, that's cool, but that's not really me. That's not me to be this mysterious person. I'm a pretty open person when you sit down and talk with me, and you are too. That's like one of the first things that you get when you get Pete Kipley is just like everything you see, everything's just right out there on your sleeve. And so I love that. And so I'm sharing this with you because I started this blog so that I could share my secrets. It'd be a kind of a place where all the musical things that I do and the things people, how does Eric do this? That I can just kind of get it all out there. And part of the reason why is because I love to save people time, because I wish people had saved me time.
Yeah, that's right.
And in terms of, it took me 5 years to figure out this stupid little thing in producing. And that's partly what I'm interested in with you is, man, I just want to steal your secrets, like for me and for
I want to steal yours.
Because, like we don't have any, Pete. Like we're just, I don't think there's anything I could ask you about music that you would say, yeah, man, I just really, that's my thing. I don't want to tell anybody about that. So.
Oh, no, it can't be that way. Yeah.
All right, dude. So just for me, this is funny because I would love to hear this too. I don't even know your history and like how you became a producer and why you started producing.
Gosh, thanks for asking. And it's crazy the timing of that question. I thought that I had wanted to be a doctor my whole life as a kid. I think it's because I had asthma when I was small and wanted to try to find a cure for it. I was sad I couldn't go out and play with my friends, and I thought I could develop some kind of a laser it would go in there and knock that out. But I was kind of on a pretty heavy track to doing that, and I journaled a lot and a lot of my ideas since I was a small child. And I started volunteering at a hospital in Irving, Texas, one of those candy stripers, and taking flowers to people's rooms and stuff just to be in there. I did it for years, and there was a doctor that it was a smaller hospital, so the surgeries that they were doing weren't anything, just kind of very small hospital surgeries. But nonetheless, if he needed a certain kind of suture, he knew that I could run faster than the elevators would work, and I could run down to the closet and get sutures.
What a cool job, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's like
and it was
speed
volunteer,
is involved.
but I know. And you really felt like, you're not supposed to run in the library, you're not supposed to run in the hospital, but I had free reign. Everybody knew,
dude, that's so cool. That's a dream.
So fun. But it really was. And, he, as I started getting into high school, I think he had a vision for me to follow in his footsteps, almost like a protege, and go to the college that he went to, and this and that, and just a really cool doctor, and somebody that I try to be with other kids now, is that, because but long story short, there was a president of a college that came in to give a keynote speech at a smaller school in Dallas, and I went to it. I had no idea what he was talking about. But at the end, I was happy that I was with a bunch of adults that were drinking wine and eating little cheese cubes. And
nice.
I was a junior in high school, I know. And, I went up to him and said, hey, I want to go to your school. And the doctor had introduced me to him. And he said, let me ask you 3 questions. And Eric, I wish I could remember what those 3 questions were. I'd do anything to go back, because they had nothing to do with medicine. Nothing to do with school. I think they were personality questions, really. But I answered the 3 questions, and I thought I did a great job answering. And he looked at me, and much to my shock, said, listen, you're not cut out to do this. Save yourself 10 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and go figure out what you're supposed to do.
Wow.
And it was a milestone in my life. First, it wrecked me. I remember getting on my Diamondback bicycle and pedaling 7 miles home, just tears streaming down my face. I'm going to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sitting there and reading just literally bookshelves full of my journals that I had been medical journals of a elementary school student. But day by day by day by day, the passion to be a doctor just kind of started fading, and I started getting better at guitar, and that one started creeping in. So,
were you even doing music prior to this at all?
And I was kind of, messing around trying to learn U2 records, and that was fascinating to me, that there was some guy named Daniel Lanois and some guy named Brian Eno that nobody even knew that had something to do with this thing. I'd seen U2, and I mean, they're just amazing, the best bands in history, but they didn't sound live quite like the records did, back then. Obviously you're not kicking tracks or those kind of things, but I kind of just became fascinated with synthesizers, and MIDI had just come out, kind of in the late 80s there, and figuring out how do you make one cable connect to another thing, and you press a button and they're responding. It was beautiful to me. And going back, I do wish I could find that professor and just thank him, because what I thought was a really negative thing, what I took negatively at the time, ended up being one of the most positive things I think in my life, because I think he's right.
Yeah, he was honest with you. That's rare.
And I find myself needing to be that way sometimes too. You'll come across a lot of kids, especially today, where everything is different. Back then, to get into music, I mean, you literally had to break down doors, because to record in a studio for one day cost $2,000 or $3,000. I mean, who's gonna let a kid in, to figure out a patch-based system, or how do you do inline routing and EQs and compressors? But today, for $300, these kids are able to make records,
Yep.
And quite frankly, some of those records that these 18-year-old kids are making are mind-blowingly good. And quite frankly, some of them are mind-blowingly bad.
Right. Of course.
So it's those kids, and it's like, I just kind of tell them the same story. And they look at me like, I don't know, like I'm Santa Claus or something.
Well, that could have gone. I'm just thinking about that. That could have gone two ways with the doctor, because you could have just said "F you, man," and then you could have been one of the most prolific doctors ever, because you were so, fueled by that opposition. But instead,
good point.
But the other side is you going, "Oh yeah, maybe he's right. I'm gonna take my energy and focus it somewhere else." So you knew somehow you realized that wasn't true, and so what? How did that continue into producing? How did you put your energy?
Well, what
into
I did was, again, we didn't have obviously the internet or cell phones or anything like that. Everybody was recording to 2-inch, except we could buy these 4-track cassette recorders. Our very our Tascam Portas. That Old Faithful.
I've had one. Yeah.
And then you'd have to bounce, you'd get 2 tracks and you'd bounce it to 1.
Bouncing down to 2 and then keep bouncing, yep. So that by the time you're done, it just sounds like
yes. And I was like, do you like my song? Like, yeah.
If I could hear it, maybe.
But man, I loved just figuring that out and trying to figure out how to record a band onto 4 tracks, at the same time, and learning about panning, learning about space, trying to learn about inserts and just whatever tools that we had. I did start playing in a band. We were just kind of we were a cover band, just kind of touring clubs and colleges, and kind of figuring that whole thing out. And
so you recorded yourself, I assume, then.
I did. It was terrible, Eric. I mean, some of the worst music you've ever heard.
But that's how you learned, It's like nobody else is going to pay
Pete's not ever going to be a singer, that's for sure. But, I ended up kind of running out of money in a really tough place to run out of money in Mobile, Alabama. And when I did, I had a friend that was there, so I just kind of stayed on the sofa until I could figure things out. And I ended up meeting these 2 Jewish guys who had a jingle studio. And they just took me under their wing and just kind of set me free. And about that same time, Pro Tools, it was actually called Sound Tools. It was 2 tracks. It was it was 1 stereo track.
Wow.
But then there was a company called Deck that came along that was able to turn those 2 tracks into 4. So then all of a sudden you had a 4-track digital audio workstation. And that was that. It was like, man, you're literally unstoppable, at that point.
Because then you can bounce and bounce and bounce, and you don't have all that hiss.
And, you can cut the audio. You could fit 16 things on 1 track.
Yeah.
You'd have to be kind of really careful of how you got it in, to the track. But anyway, I appreciated them. And that town was Mobile, Alabama. And there was a record label there called Integrity Music that just did worship music. And a few of the folks there kind of found out about me and started coming over and recording their demos with me. And I just fell in love with worship music at that time, especially with these guys. One of them was Paul Balash, who's just a dear friend to this day, that was just right. I was kind of thinking worship music was, the hymnal stuff, or, just, we have to sing now at church for whatever reason, embarrass ourselves or something. But no, these guys lived the way that they wrote. They lived these lives that I really looked up to and aspired to be. And they're just fantastic songwriters and musicians and artists, really, just worship artists. So that was back in, I'd say 95, 96. 10 years of hitting the clubs pretty hard,
nice,
and figuring out a 4-track to realizing, wait a minute, you know what? There's something about worship music specifically that there are places that you can go where you can't go in other genres, because worship really is a reaction. It's this cinematic reaction to a creator that just blew my mind, that I was able to have an open palette to express that through recording or producing. So
Yeah.
kind of that's what set that track and ended up in Nashville. There was a record company guy that kind of heard some of the things that I was doing and asked me if I would come with him to listen to this worship band from Texas who had what he thought was a big song. And I said, sure, I'll go. And I went, and the band was Mercy Me. And, I'm in this, I don't know, like youth room, but it is packed to the gills. I mean, you can hardly even stand in there. And the band was okay. The singer was amazing. But man, when they hit that song, that place just fell out. It was I Can Only Imagine. And I looked at Jeff and was like, man, this is big,
Yeah, like what's going on?
So ironically, last night, 17 years after we recorded this song, my wife and I went to the screening of the Lionsgate production of I Can Only Imagine that's coming out in March, and it was just mind-numbing to me to realize that something that we had done really on literally no money. Like we recorded that vocal was recorded in his bathroom. The bathroom was a 3-bedroom house.
No way.
And it became the biggest selling Christian song of all time.
That's good news for all the bathroom recorders out there.
That's right. And so what I do now is do most of my recordings in the bathroom. And I mean, it takes care of having to use reverb,
Yeah.
Or any, if you need a good swell, just flush,
Yes.
There it is.
Nice swell.
I don't know.